Cool. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to our nutrition talk for food, mood, and stress management. Let me get this slideshow started. Excellent. All right. I think we're ready to go. Cool. Well, our nutrition program, I'm sure some of you know, is backed by Healthy Steps Nutrition, which is a program that's helped over 30,000 people in and around the world take control of their health. These are just a few of the success stories from the program, but it's registered dietitian backed, and then we're all trained in how to run the program. Right now, we've got a few clients in our program, and while it's never a quick fix, I think that people have found a lot of help in small incremental steps that are consistent over time to produce progress at a sustainable pace. All right, this is gonna be a little bit of a longer talk. I got a few different slides to go through and a lot of information. So today's all about food, mood, and stress, and really about how all these things work together to affect your health. You may be wondering, outside of feeling hangry, how does food affect our mood? Well, a lot of studies have shown that diets high in fruits and vegetables, modest in lean protein, and empty of processed sugars and foods are associated with 25 to 35% lower risk of depression when compared to a typical westernized diet. And when we consider westernized diet, that's processed foods, right? We're the king and queens of convenience foods, things that are processed many times over that are not necessarily straight from farm. And that's, again, some red meats, sugar, lots of fat, etc. After the holidays, you might find yourself feeling those post-holiday blues, right? So we're not quite at Christmas, but you might be by the time you watch this, and you're not alone in those feelings, right? Well, part of the low mood and energy might be the hustle and bustle from season and just the kind of the lull after it. We also need to consider how foods that are associated with holidays might lead to overconsumption. In a study published in, let's see, this was the Psychology and Cognitive Neuroscience journal, researchers found that in as little as 1 week, I'm reading a quote, so let me make sure I get this right. In as little as 1 week, eating a Western diet can significantly alter brain function, with the participants of the study doing worse on learning and memory tests. Further, the Western diet was tied to overeating and increased cravings of sugary treats after consuming a regular meal. And you might be hearing that and thinking, like, I can relate to that. I know I can. This study found that these participants had experienced an impact in hippocampus due to their diet, which is responsible for things like emotions, learning, and motivation. So I know that's a little sciencey for our talk, but I thought it was an interesting, it kind of like begs the next question, right? So it begs the question of how do we get in the habit of not making the best food choices, and how do we start making the right food choices on our own? Oops. All right, so our brain and our gut are super connected, right? And one connection that it makes is by this hormone called serotonin. Serotonin may be familiar when you think of mood, right? Serotonin is like that happiness hormone. And so when we think about sunshine or we think about happy things, right? All that serotonin, that's what's released in our system to help us feel that. But this hormone actually impacts our entire body, like sleep, eating, mood, digestion, and even further, the vast majority of our serotonin receptors are located in our gut, and that's that brain-gut connection, right? Newer research is finding that the balance of good and bad bacteria is in our gut, directly related to our diet, and has a connection with diseases including depression and anxiety. And like, that doesn't shock me to hear that, but it definitely is interesting that studies can support that, right? You always kind of have that gut gut feeling, no pun intended. But you had that gut feeling that what you eat affects your gut and your gut affects your brain. They're all connected. So when we aren't making the choice to eat a balanced diet, the balance in our gut, which is directly related to our mood, gets compromised, leading us to feel more sad and unmotivated. And then you can see that cycle repeat, right? Gut to brain, brain to gut, gut to brain, brain to gut. All right, so things that we can think about. Now that we know that food really is playing a role in our mood, here's what you can do to start finding not only your healthiest version of yourself, but also the healthiest version of yourself. And our tip number one is going to be focus on food quality. This next slide is not going to be new. You see it almost every nutrition talk I do, called the plate method. This is one of the easiest and most effective ways for improving your diet to eat a balanced meal of high quality foods. You can start by reconstructing your plate to have half non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, green beans, asparagus, zucchini. There's a lot more. Next, you want to have a palm or quarter size of your plate covered in lean proteins such as seafood, chicken, or turkey. And then that'll leave a quarter of your plate for those starchy carbohydrates that we all know and love, which is potatoes, fruits, rice, and bread. And then you've got your fats on the outside. Oops. All right, so along with highly processed foods affecting our serotonin response, let's take a minute to talk about sugar in the body. And I know this is a tough one. Our brain requires glucose for energy, so we always need some sort of sugar for energy. In fact, the organ in our body that is the most energy demanding organ and nearly uses half of the sugar we all consume is going to be our brain. So we know that we need something, but too much of something becomes a problem. And so let's talk about the effect of excess sugar on our bodies. When we consume high amounts of sugar, our blood sugar surges up, which is followed by a crash. Research has found that the relationship between this high and the crash of our blood sugars and mood disorders such as depression, anxiety, as well as learning and memory functions. How can sugar be causing this, you might ask? Okay, this is a big, a little bit of a longer slide. Let me get some water. This is a little sciencey. You might not be super interested in this, but there also is a podcast, The Sugar Addiction and Chronic Disease with Karen Thompson on the Grow Your Nutrition Business podcast that you can listen to if you are super amped about this kind of information. So give me a couple minutes, let me talk about this, and then we can move on. Sugar suppresses an important hormone called BDNF. This particular hormone has been found in lower levels in individuals with depression and other mental disorders such as schizophrenia. We also know that sugar promotes the inflammatory response in our body, and when consumed in high amounts consistently, it can become chronic inflammation, which impacts our immune system and brain. This can also lead to the connection between sugar consumption and depression. So that's a pretty easy connection to make. But further, we know that the inflammation response after consuming a diet high in sugar may also worsen anxiety symptoms by impairing the body's natural ability to cope with stress. Sugar has been known to cause blurred vision, difficulty thinking, and fatigue due to the crash after you consume, which is similar to what a panic attack may feel like in some individuals. So while sugar itself does not cause anxiety, research has established a correlation between sugar consumption and anxiety. In other words, diets high in sugar may exacerbate actual stress as well as feelings of increased stress. And then lastly, studies have been shown that the effects of sugar on memory, high amounts of sugar in the body can cause an insulin resistance, which damages the communication between brain cells that are fueled by sugar needed for learning and memory in our day. So like really interesting connections. And when we start especially thinking about, sugar, we start thinking about ADHD in kids, we start thinking about some anxiety in some of the younger age groups, we can now see that processed foods and some of those high sugar foods, especially if like parents aren't taking, maybe an interest in packing lunches or noting what's in their lunch, and balancing it out with dinner, things like that, you can start kind of seeing some of those other correlations too. It's pretty interesting. All right, so that brings us to tip number 2, which is going to be stay aware and mindful of added sugar. Well, sugar is hide almost everywhere. We know that. Here are 2 easy areas that you can start to identify and swap out excess sugar in your day. Balanced snacks should be treated like meals. Do they have a good source? This is a question. Do they have a good source of protein, carbs, and fat? So take a look at these few of these options to try to commit to trying one this week. One that I like all of these, but what was I going to say? Sorry. I like all of these, but I do really enjoy like a hard-boiled egg. And I've actually started putting everything but the bagel seasoning on that. And then berries just have less of that sugar high. So that's why we like berries. If you really, really really have a sweet tooth, those clementines are great. Having one small clementine is always a good idea. Yeah, these are all good ones. Sometimes I'll do, if I have a little bit of room for fat, maybe I'll do the beef jerky, the apple, and make maybe a little bit of almond butter on that. So lots of good ideas here. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. You just got to kind of find things that work for you. So mix and match. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to fit in any of these boxes. You might like something else. All right, next idea here is to refresh your water. We all know that water consumption is huge into keeping us hydrated, but also keeping some of those boredom signals at bay. And so a lot of times, we find if you have some beverages, depending on what you have throughout the day, you might have some sugar in those. All of a sudden you have a regular Coke, or you have some juice, or anything, it could have added sugar in it. According to the CDC, this is a study, 6 in 10 youth and 5 in 10 adults drank a sugar sweetened beverage on a given day. On average, US youth consumed 143 calories from sugar sweetened beverages, and US adults consumed 145 calories. Rather than reaching for a soda, latte, juice, aim to drink more water. And so you can freshen up your water with some fruits, veggies, or fresh herbs. I know watermelon and mint is like a nice summer one. Cucumber, lime, strawberries, grapes. Yeah, if you like that. I know I put some lemon in my water, just like give it something. So these are all good options for you. And then tip number 3 is, so far we talked about how food affects your mood, but now we need to think about how we affect our mood. So we talk about stress management. We live in a world that constantly throws us stress. And it really does affect our health, no matter how much we think it doesn't. So we know that increased stress can lead to increased cortisol in the body. These higher levels of cortisol lead to increased blood sugar and inflammation, a suppressed immune response, and decreased nutrient metabolism. Studies also show that increased levels of stress may also cause weight gain and water retention, high blood pressure, fatigue, changes in mood causing irritability, and insulin resistance, which we talked about earlier. It's clear that stress often flies under our radar in our journey, but we need to take control so we can increase our overall health and mood. While stress isn't as simple to navigate around like sugary beverages, we can work on proper stress management techniques. Practicing mindfulness when presented with stressors gives us alternative ways to process and handle what is happening. Whenever you're feeling stressed, practice stop to become more mindful. Stop stands for slowing down, taking a breath, observing what you're feeling. And lastly, proceed considering multiple possibilities. So here's a little bit more about stop. And this is a great, when you are feeling triggered, right, and you're about to react, stop. And in your workbook, you'll start seeing some of the stress management information or pieces of information, so you can start kind of following along in your workbook. All right. And I know that we all have talked about stress management over the past 2 years with a pandemic, so I'm sure that none of this is new to you. But it might be a good opportunity to try something different, especially if you find that something hasn't been working for you. So take the time during stressful moments to stop and become more mindful, and that will help you navigate your mindset. Here are 5 tips for managing stress that may work for you. So you got exercise, start a daily journal, meditate or do yoga, talking with your support system, or if you've had a therapist, or telehealth is a really big deal now. So you might be offered some telehealth services, and practicing mindfulness. All right. This is a really interesting episode, the connection between the food you eat, gut health, anxiety, and depression. So if you wanted to listen to this is on the Nutrition Made Simple podcast. And this is the gal on the left is Nicole Aucoin. She is the registered dietitian that runs Healthy Steps Nutrition, and she's our mentor, or my mentor. And then Dr. Uma Nadu, and they really talk about that gut-brain connection. At this point, hopefully the handbook and I totally forgot to reference the handbook at the start of the webinar, so I apologize, but there is a handbook. You can start filling that out, and maybe you want to pause this webinar and kind of finish filling that out and talking about the stress management piece of it. And then you're realizing maybe you'll start realizing, how important some of these foods we eat are, connecting us to our physical health, but also our mental health. All right, so then we're going to talk about, oh my gosh, sorry guys. Okay, we're just going to dip into 2 super big principles for Healthy Steps Nutrition, which is again what we preach. And the first one, okay, that's up. The first one's gonna be adding more whole foods into your diet. And again, we're gonna talk about, I'm gonna keep kind of beating on this plate method because it really is the simple way to start this process of reshaping your plate, which is again, half non-starchy veggies, a quarter lean protein, a quarter starchy carbs, and then mindful, healthy fats. And then focus 2 is going to be a balance of protein, carbs, and fats. When we say balance, we are looking to pair each meal and snack with all 3 macronutrients to keep you fuller, and keep you fuller longer. And so when we say balance, we don't mean everything's equal. We mean keeping in mind that plate method and trying to follow that plate method for each of our meals and snacks. And then 3 is limit the amount of added sugar you consume daily. We get it. There is no possible way to, nor should you, get rid of every single sugar. But what we're saying is trying to limit it, so that we are not consuming what an average person consumes, which is over 150 pounds of sugar a year. And if you put that out to daily, that would be 46 teaspoons per day. All right. There's always some FAQs. I kind of took some of the most common ones that I get and going to answer these to finish off this webinar. These may or may not be pertinent to you or interesting. So if they aren't, that's okay. So what should I eat around my workout? I feel like I get that a lot. Fueling around your workouts to gain muscle, lose fat, increase energy, and really any fitness or health goal is important. You should aim to have some healthy carb and proteins before and after your workout. If you don't put gas in your car, would you expect it to go anywhere? So our bodies don't run on E, right? And so we want to make sure we're fueled pre-workout. A lot of times what we'll see is people, this is really, really common and super easy, is like an applesauce pouch. Those are some quick carbs carbs that are not super upsetting to someone's stomach. They don't have a lot of additives. It's pretty natural. And then one post-workout fuel. If you're looking for something quick and easy, a lot of times a protein shake will do the trick. It usually has some carbs and some protein. If you wanted to eat something, you could definitely make sure you have like a plate method meal. Or if you're looking for something kind of quick, some Greek yogurt with some blueberries mixed in, even like a little bit of honey if you wanted a little bit of sugar in there, you could do something like that. I don't love veggies. I hear it all the time. I don't love veggies. I don't like eating veggies. They're disgusting. My son says it all the time. We try to still get him to eat veggies. So I think the question is, what if maybe the way to phrase it is, I don't like vegetables because I haven't found a way to enjoy them yet. And so I would encourage you to think about different ways to prepare your vegetables, right? Roasting veggies for a crunch, or adding some seasoning that you could be excited about. I know Trader Joe's has a ton of good seasoning. I was talking with one of my clients probably a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about the everything but the bagel seasoning, but then we were also talking about, gosh, they have this like, I think it's tahini, they've got Zazatar, they've got a ton of different seasonings that are just kind of unique. And then the last way would be sneaking them into recipes or even smoothies. So like, for instance, today I'm going to make some chili, and I'm going to actually put some spinach in my chili. Not my favorite, like spinach isn't my favorite vegetable, but I'm going to sneak it in there, see how I like it. I might even put some kale in there. It'll cook down, and I bet you I won't even notice it. So, all right. And then, an overwhelming question that a lot of people ask is like, I just don't even know where to start. And so I am a big believer of focusing on one thing at a time. You can ask any of the clients that have started this HSN program, is that we do one thing at a time, and that's it. And we nail that one thing, and then we build on that. And so usually it's like water, or we focus on one meal a day. And then we nail that for a good week or two and still feel really good about that. And then we move on. And so if that's an approach that sounds really interesting to you, like, great, reach out to me. Let's see how we can get you started, and see how we can start chipping away at some of your goals and figuring out how to help you find some habit-based nutrition. Yeah, just you've got to make a commitment to yourself, right? It's simple, not easy. That's what I mean. I feel like I always say that in class too, right? Simple, not easy. So if you don't really know where to start, let me help you create a plan that's realistic and help keep you accountable to it. Again, this is a slide from the beginning, just showing you that achieving weight loss, sustainable weight loss, is possible over a longer period of time. We are just trying to find small changes to make every day so that you can make a really big change at the end. These are just some more Nutrition Made Simple podcasts with results that you might find helpful, of real people, real scenarios, things that people are doing, and using the principles that we use. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I will put this up on YouTube, and hopefully you'll get a chance to complete that workbook. And if you have any questions, or if anything stumped you, or I said something that didn't quite make sense, you want to talk about it, I'd love to follow up with you. So just let me know. And then you guys can always shoot me a note, melissa@crossfitslayer.com, and I'll be happy to answer questions too. Thanks so much.